Hi there, I'm Lori Jinkins, State Representative from the 27th Legislative District, which is in North Tacoma, Northeast Tacoma, the East Side, the West End, a little slice of Fife, the whole town of Ruston. And I'm doing my second video blog of this 60-day legislative session. One of the things that I try and do when I talk to you over video is think about some of the questions that I've had as a new member of the House of Representatives. Last year I did a video on how a bill becomes a law. I also did a video for you on the difference between the capital budget, the transportation budget, and our operating budget, because those were questions I had. One of the things I'm really struggling a lot with this year is a very short legislative session and all the timelines and how quickly we have to get things done. So I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about some of the legislative timelines this year. First, I'd like to introduce to you my legislative assistant, Jessica Gavry. She's the one who schedules all of my appointments for me and tries to fit in as much as she can in a day. She's got pulled up here one of my daily calendars, and if you looked really closely at it, you'd see that I meet with constituents in 15-minute increments throughout the day. I sit on 4 committees, each having 2-hour hearings. So there are some days when I'm in hearings for 8 hours a day and then trying to fit in meetings with people in between those. So it can be very, very, very busy. But let's go into my office and we'll talk a little bit more about the broader scope of the legislative timelines. So let's talk a little bit about this year's legislative timeline. This is the first day of session, and here is 60 days later at the end of session. There are usually 2 types of bills in any legislative session. Some of them cross over. There are policy bills, and there are fiscal bills. If you have a policy bill, which most of mine are, they will go to the committee very early on, right after you file them. And then there's a cutoff date. This year, it's going to be in the next week in the House of Representatives. And your policy bill has to be out of that policy committee. For example, I sit on the healthcare committee and have a number of healthcare bills. So my bills have to be out of the healthcare policy committee by the end of next week if they're going to stay alive and keep on moving. If they have a fiscal impact, they'll then go down to a fiscal committee. And they'll have a few extra days to work their way through the fiscal committee. If they don't make it out of the fiscal committee, then they will not move forward anymore. Just so you know, most of the policy bills that I've been working on this year, I've been trying to not have any fiscal impact on them because of the difficult fiscal situation the state is in. But after they come out of the fiscal committee, then they can be voted on by the House of Representatives, and there's just a few days in there where all of the bills, either through policy or fiscal, can be voted on in the House of Representatives. One other note I'd make for you is bills that don't have any fiscal impact but are policy bills, they would just move and be eligible to be voted on the floor. Once they come off of the floor of the originating house, so the House of Representatives where I sit, then that same thing happens all over again in the Senate. And that all has to happen within 60 days. So it may seem to you actually like there are some things, for example, I've had a lot of constituents who talk to me about the budget and why aren't we spending all of our time working on the budget now. What I would tell you is that we are working on the budget now. Part of it is we're looking at the policy bills that have an impact on the budget, either positive or negative, so that they can go to the fiscal committee and our budget writers can work on those. Likewise, there are hearings going on all throughout here about bills that have fiscal impact and about our budget generally. And so once we see what's come off of the floor of the House, sometime after that is likely when you're going to see a budget from the House of Representatives on the operating budget. Now, the one final thing that I would tell you about all the bill-making process and the fiscal process here in the state legislature is that nothing is written in stone. So there can always be exceptions to any bill, depending on what it is and how important it is to people. That's why the very favorite thing that I have in my office is this. And every person who comes and meets with me in my office sees this stone sitting in the middle of my table. And we all get a kick out of the fact that I have the phrase, "Nothing is written in stone, written on a stone." And that is, I think, the final word for what you can expect in this sometimes crazy legislative session. So I hope that this makes some sense to you. It's been a very fast-moving session for me, working on a lot of different things, but I'm very happy to be down here and to have all of you as my constituents. Please feel free to email me or call Jessica if you want to set up some time with me. Thanks a lot.